from the inside with Promise Resource Network. My name is Kira, and I am happy to be here with you today to talk about finding comfort and community in your home. We've been talking about this for a couple months now, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm feeling a little bit more connected to myself and to my community since we've been talking about the things that we can do to make, I was going to say better use, but to make good use of this time that we have when we're stuck at home. The reason I didn't want to say better is because we're surviving. This is a crazy time, and there's a lot going on. And, you know, some days I feel like I'm holding my breath and just floating through the day. Some months I feel that way too. And getting to the other side and being able to breathe again is an achievement in and of itself. So if that's where you are, if that's where we are, that is okay. I want to be here to talk about some tips and tricks that we can use to try to make the most of it, to try to survive in the best way that we can, and to take care of ourselves along the way. So never any pressure. You are doing great. This is a wild time, and it is not what any of us expected, but you're doing great and you're hanging in there. One of the things that we're going to talk about today is being present. That's a really interesting topic, especially during this time, I think. Most of the time I don't know what day it is, which is kind of strange, but the pandemic, the additional time that we've been staying at home, the cancellation of a lot of activities, the change in school schedules and things like that has really messed with my routine. I mean, we're 9-10 months in at this point, and I'm still struggling to reestablish a routine. And part of that is because the structures just aren't there like they used to be. So my daughter doesn't go to school anymore, and my husband works full time, and I work. So we use evenings and weekends and things like that to catch up on things that don't get done during the week when we're trading off childcare or taking care of things that we might not have had to do before. One of the things we talked about last Thursday was clutter and how there's so much more that's happening in our houses right now, leading to more cluttered spaces. Well, that also leads to more work keeping up with it and cleaning it up and things like that. So everything has changed, and we might not be able to fall back into a structure as quickly as we would like. Even though it's been months and months, you know, we still haven't been able to kind of iron out a structure that has the weekends and things like that it used to. So a lot of days blend together. A lot of days are very similar. I always know when it's Thursday now, though, because I get to talk to you guys, and I'm excited about that. And today is a special Thursday for a lot of people. For those of you who celebrate, Merry Christmas, and today is Christmas Eve. One of my favorite days of the year, just because I find it to be the sparkliest day of the year, and I love that. It's a day about anticipation. And growing up, the anticipation of Christmas was always my favorite part. Thursday actually used to be my favorite day of the week too, because Thursday is also all about anticipation and getting ready for the weekend and getting excited about what the weekend can bring. It's interesting though, anticipation used to be a lot more enjoyable for me than the real thing. Like, that's weird, right? I used to enjoy anticipating the weekend more than actually experiencing the weekend. And the reason for that is because on Thursday, nothing had happened yet to spoil the weekend. On Christmas Eve, nothing had happened yet that could be disappointing on Christmas. I've never done very well with disappointment, but I fear disappointment in a lot of ways. I fear disappointment of the people around me, and I fear this sense of lost time or a mistake that I can't fix. So basically, in no way at all was I living in the present. I was either living in the future and what could happen, or in the past of what didn't go the way I expected. But just because it didn't go the way I expected doesn't mean that it was wrong or bad, but it felt like I had less control over it. And so I lived in this state of anticipation of the future and fear of the past, and sometimes fear of a future past. That's kind of weird, right? But it would be, I would worry that I wouldn't make the best use of the weekend, or I wouldn't get everything I needed done, or it wouldn't be as relaxing as it needed to be to prepare me for Monday. And I was so caught up in all of this even before it happened that I didn't have a chance to live in the present. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is living in the present. Taking advantage of this moment that we're in. Part of me, even in my head, and you might be thinking of this of me too, is like, why do we want to take advantage of living in this moment right now? Well, because it's the moment we have, right? This is the moment we have. And this has been a year of moments, and we're going to continue to have many more moments during this pandemic, and they can be good or they cannot. And we do have some choice over those. We definitely have choice over some moments, not over everything that happens, but over how we process a lot of those events. So I want us to live in the moment. And this mindful living, this living in the present, this really feeling the moment or the experience that we're having, this isn't specific to the pandemic. This is something that we can do beyond. If you Google being present, which I did, you will get 2 billion results. Billion with a B. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for being present. There's a lot to be said about being present. And also, there are a lot of different ways to do it. Like with a lot of things, especially as we talk about taking care of our mental health, there are many guides out there that will tell you everything you need to know about the secret of pure happiness or a stress-free living or all of these wonderful things. If it were that easy, we would all read a book and be cured forever. It's not that easy, but it is something that we can do and we can work on it. And the reason there are so many different books about these topics is because everyone's a little bit different. So don't feel that because somebody says this is the way to be mindful, that that's the only way to do it. Take the advice, take the tips, and turn them into something that works for you. That's one of the reasons that I love this community. I love that we get to share some of the things that have worked for us in the past. So you can pick and be like, oh, what that person said, that really resonates with me. I'm going to try it. And you can also share the things that have worked for you and give other people ideas. And we pick and we choose the things that work for us and are sustainable for us. That's really important too. Whenever anybody tells me to get up first thing in the morning and, have an hour of quiet before the kids get up, yeah, that is not sustainable for me. There's already not enough sleep happening around here. I'm not getting up an hour early. Plus, in our house, the time that we wake up in the morning changes drastically. My daughter just wakes up when she's not tired anymore, which could be 5 a.m. and it could be 8 a.m. So I'm not getting up at 4 a.m. every day, just in case. So you have to pick the things that work for you and that you can do reasonably and continuously. Because with things like mindfulness and mental health and things like that, it does help to do it once, but it really helps to continue it as a practice. You'll get better at it. It'll get more natural, and it'll create a calm that continues, and not just a moment of calm, but more calm in your life as you go forward. So let me know. This is always a little bit strange to do the recording, right? I'm ready to see your comments pop up telling me the things that work for you. I won't see them pop up right now, but I do still want to hear them. What works for you? Put your comments on this. I will check them. I will come back and talk to you. Let's have this conversation, even though this video itself is recorded. Let's continue to talk about this. And of course, I'll be back live. Trying to think of the days again. Where am I? On New Year's Eve, on the 31st. And so please feel free to add things in the comments there as well. But if you don't want to wait that long, and I don't blame you, put them in the comments and I will get back to you. We will also be having another video on the 29th on Saturday. So please jump in and take a look at that as well. Also, please like and share this post, this video. The bigger our community, the more tips and tricks that we have. And I would love to know the people in your life, how they're doing as well, and what they have found helps them be present in the moment, and also what things are just helping them and helping you get through. What are you doing right now that is working for you? We had some great ideas for things to do for holiday traditions and last week. And I love hearing that. I love ideas and inspiration and just sharing the good things in our lives. We share a lot of common experiences right now that are not the best. So I love the idea of sharing some things that are working for us. Now, before we talk about more being present, I actually want to talk about that sharing good experiences. It brings to mind something that I've been seeing a lot about on social media and my feeds recently, and that's toxic positivity or forced positivity. We do not want this. I'm a very positive person by nature. I try very hard to always be looking at the bright side of things. And so I'm going to be very mindful about that as I go forward, because I do not want to fall into toxic positivity. That's one of those things where, I don't know, you're positive just for the sake of being positive, and it actually takes you out of being present with your emotions. You know, it's like if someone says, I just lost my job and I'm really worried about how I'm going to pay the bills. And the person that they're talking to responds with, oh man, that's tough, but you'll get through it. Stay positive, get those resumes out, you're going to do great. Like, okay, that's not really very helpful. Thanks. Or something like that. When you're sick and someone's like, oh, you know, take some vitamins and you'll feel great soon. Well, yeah, that may be true, but can you just sit with me for a minute in my feelings? It's really easy to do on social media when somebody posts something that's sad or stressful, or that they're, you know, having some serious and some negative feelings to. It's very easy for a lot of people to just respond quickly with sending positive vibes, or you'll get through it, or be strong. And all those things are true, and they're not necessarily bad in and of themselves. But when you're going through a lot of really deep emotions and you're getting a lot of these kind of one-liners, it feels maybe like people aren't hearing you and like you're not being supportive. And it's tough to know what to say in any situation where someone is struggling and they're hurting. But it's better to say something real than something that can come across as very flippant, because that person could take it as you not caring, when what you're trying to say is I care but I don't know what to say. That might not be how it comes across. So I do like to say very, very positive things all the time. It's how I talk to myself too, and how I get through a lot of tough times. But I'm going to start being mindful of that, that I'm not, you know, gaslighting myself or the people around me and just being like, everything's great, it doesn't matter that you're struggling, everything's great. So that's something I'm going to be working on and sitting with a little bit as I go through the next few months, specifically through the pandemic. And I think the transition out of the pandemic is going to be really interesting too. Right now, I have a lot of you should feel grateful. You're surviving it the best you can and things like that. Even though that sometimes my feelings are, but I'm lonely and I want to leave my house. But I also think as we transition out of spending so much time at home and back into regular routines, those routines are going to look a little bit different. And it's going to be a little bit shocking for people who have spent so much time at home and in a different environment. And so I think that we're in, it's going to be really easy to say things like, but it's over, but we're back to normal. And it might not feel that way. So I think we need to sit with those feelings and be careful that we're not using too much toxic positivity to just gloss over the hard parts of it. Being present is about feeling the moment. It's not about having the best moment or making the moment the best. It's about sitting with it. And so that's the case with negative emotions as well. Yeah, I mean, it kind of sounds terrible to say, but when we don't sit with those negative emotions, when we try to push them under or brush them aside or change how we or someone else is looking at a situation too much positivity, then it just leads to these feelings that aren't being acknowledged. And they don't go away. They hide somewhere and they'll come back later and be like, hey, is it my time to have the spotlight yet? So they need to be seen and heard and processed so that we can move past them. So feel free to call me on it if I do slip into those, but it's going to be great without really acknowledging the full situation first. Like I said, I had not really thought about my own role in this overly positive, way of looking at things or way of brushing things to the side. So I'm going to be trying to sit with that a little bit. And being present, like so many other things in life, you don't get it right the first time, or it's not perfect. It's something that gets better and better with practice. In the beginning, it's hard. It can be really exhausting. It can be frustrating, but the more you do it, the better you get and the more natural it becomes. And it's definitely worth doing. So I've been talking a lot about being present. So what do I mean? Well, I mean living in this moment right now, focused entirely on what I'm doing in this moment with the people around me. That's actually a lot harder to do than it sounds. It sounds simple, but it's not. There are always constant distractions externally and internally. And there are a lot of pressures on our life all the time that make it very hard for us to just be at peace in this moment. But there are a lot of benefits to figuring out how to make being present work for you. It lowers your stress levels. Right now, do we all need some lower stress levels? Yes, we do. It helps you connect with other people. Have you ever been talking to someone or like going about your day? This used to happen with someone I worked with. And actually my husband is really good about this too. I'm very fortunate in that regard. But I remember it at work because things were always crazy. I worked in a role that supported traders. So they're constantly doing business like this. They're talking on the phones to clients. They're trying to get things done, and we're trying to help all those trades happen. I worked on the back end. We're trying to help all those trades happen. So it's constant and crazy, and people are shouting across, and all this stuff is happening every, always 10 minutes after that should have happened. Everything is a very intense environment. And there was one person that I worked with who would always turn, look you in the eye, stop typing. Like I would always, type and be like, yeah, and this person would stop typing, turn, swivel in their chair, face you directly and say, and what is the problem? Okay, what do you think we should do about that? And the way that they stopped and focused right there on you, on the problem, just made you feel like you could fix anything. It was really calming because I didn't feel like I was fighting for that person's attention. I knew that they heard me and heard the exact problem that I was saying, not some interpretation they got while they were distracted with something else. And then I could breathe for a second, and when they said, how do you think we should fix that? I could calmly say, well, actually, this is my plan, rather than trying to justify my plan and are you listening and all of this stuff. And those moments, I unfortunately did not work with this person very often. It was great when I did, but those moments made me feel like everything was doable. And I can't imagine that it took any longer. It actually probably took less time to solve a problem that way than it would have if we were trying to do 1,000 things at once. Like I said, I used to type while people were talking to me, and I was praised for the skill to be able to do that. But then if you read what I typed, like half the words I was listening to ended up into it. It wasn't as effective as maybe I thought it was at the time. And I didn't even realize at the time how much that person focusing on me while I was talking really impacted how I communicated as well. I was, of course, not being present and focused more on everything else that was going on. But now I remember it. And I remember how different it was to interact with that person. So being present can also impact your relationships with the people around you. I will admit, this has only been like 6 years or so. I can't remember his name. I don't remember. But I do remember the way that he talked to me. And now, actually, my brain is going, and I'm going to be trying to think of that name for a while now. But so it really impacts the way that you respond to other people, and they respond to you. And I would guess that he remembers my name because he took the time to be present in that moment with me. Imagine the impact of doing that in your personal relationships. Imagine the impact of doing that with your kids and your spouse. My husband and I are very busy, as we all are, but we tend to talk over my daughter's head or over the dishes while we're doing them or over something else. And that's kind of the way that we are able to communicate. Because you gotta, I have a lot of words. But you gotta cram all those words that you have to talk about into the different moments in the day. But the times that we sit down and we really look at each other and say, how was your day? We get different information than we do. Usually when it's over the chaos of the day, we are kind of spitting factual and schedule information at each other, right? It's more logistical. But sitting down and putting everything else aside, putting down the phone, we really get a chance to find out how the person is doing rather than what they're doing or what needs to be taken care of. My husband's very good at making me feel like I'm the only person in the room when I'm talking to him. We still do. There's the reality of life. So we still do a lot of, just like tossing information as the person is walking by. That's normal. But having those moments of connection are really important too. I got very distracted talking about this, but I meant to be talking about all the benefits of mindfulness and being present all at once. But clearly, connecting with people is something that sparks joy for me. That's something that's very important to me and something that I'm feeling I'm lacking a little bit right now because I don't get to have that focused conversation with people as often as I would like to. And I would like to as often as pretty much every minute of every day. I really like connecting with people that way. So that's something that means a lot to me. And that's one of the reasons that I like to be present in the moment. I'm actually trying to look at my list over here and see if I can remember the other things that are beneficial about it. Stress release, connecting with people, calmness. I guess that goes with stress release, but to me, kind of getting rid of stress in the moment when you're, working yourself up and you're like worried about all the things that are going on is a little bit different than kind of trying to live in a calmer, steadier way. And so I think that's very important. And they have different impacts on your body too. Managing stress actually has a physical impact on your body. I don't know if you guys have heard of the stress hormone cortisol, but it impacts your body. It causes inflammation. It causes you to feel yucky. I'm sure it serves a purpose too. I'm sure it does great things that I forget about because I'm always focused on the negative impacts that it has on your body. But if you have prolonged stress, it increases the levels that you have of that to a level that makes you not feel as good. And so reducing your stress, not just in a stressful moment, but kind of in a long-term trajectory is important too. When I started putting out my resumes back in the 90s, it was kind of when I was learning how to do a resume and all of that, multitasking was something that was on there. I don't know who told me multitasking should be on a resume, but back in the 90s, it was something that people were talking about a lot. This could have started way before that, and I only became aware of it in the 90s. But now in 2020, it's not talked about in the same way because it's not really considered a skill that people should learn to do. It's just considered how we live our lives. Everybody multitasks. It's what you do. You have your phone going, you have your laptop going, you have people talking to you, you're doing things, you've got the kids, you're planning the future, you're, maybe cooking dinner at the same time. We do all of these things always, all the time together. And that's a lot. That's a lot to pay attention to at once. I have read studies that say that humans don't actually multitask. We just do snippets of tasks in rapid succession. So you're not really doing two things at the same time. You're like really quickly flipping back and forth between a couple different things. I can talk and stir at the same time though, so I'm not exactly sure where that is, but the point is that you can't put your attention on multiple things at the same time like that, which means that's a lot of stress on our brains to be constantly flipping back and forth between all the things. And it also means that we're probably not doing them all as well as we would if we took them on individually. That is part of life. And I am not here to say that we should all be living in the present moment all the time. Some of the 2 billion results on Google do say that. But for me personally, that's not realistic. That doesn't kind of fit my nature. And it's not really something that I'm looking to achieve right now. But I am looking to create moments in the day that are mindful, that reduce my stress, that help me enjoy my life, and that help me focus on the things that are good and important, and that help me acknowledge my feelings. Good, bad, ugly, whatever they are there and they are real, and I'm going to acknowledge them. So I'm not talking about kind of wiping the slate clean and starting from this moment and only thinking about this moment forever. I'm more talking about ways of integrating this into the lives that we live. Because let's face it, sometimes multitasking is the only way to get this to-do list done in this amount of time. That's just reality. But there are ways that we can reorganize our to-do list so that there are things that we can be fully mindful of and fully enjoy. It will reduce stress, and it will also give you back some of your time in some ways. Because all of that multitasking is not efficient and it's not productive. A lot of it is, don't get me wrong, but a lot of it isn't. So one of those things for me is dinner time. My family does not have phones at the dinner table. it's important for us to talk. When I was growing up, it was so strict that if the phone rang during dinner, nobody answered it. But now the phone might be nearby and we might be like, is that important? No, okay. But we're not on the internet. We don't surf social media. We talk to each other during dinner every day. And I love it. We always have family dinner. My daughter is 3, so I might have to fight harder for that as she gets older. I know that schedules do get a little bit crazy. But we actually shifted her bedtime at one point because my husband was getting home from work late enough that she was having to go to bed before we could get dinner done. And we shifted her schedule because it was so important for us to have that time together as a family. She has since decided that apparently she needs like very little sleep for a 3-year-old. So she's up anyway, it's fine. But that time is very present time for us. We are together as a family. We talk about everybody's days. And I didn't even realize kind of how consistent we were about it until my daughter would sit down at the dinner table and be like, so, Mom, how was your day today? Did you have a good day at work? Did you enjoy it? And I thought that was really nice because it was such a routine for her that she knew exactly what to say and what questions to ask. So being mindful at dinner is, oh, look at how much I'm smiling. It's like my favorite part of the day. Because as crazy as everything is, we're together and we're talking. Sometimes our dinners are short. Sometimes it's like, hey, how you doing? Yeah, okay, great. Okay, I gotta get to my thing. But it doesn't matter because we still have that time every single day, which is really important. There are a lot of other ways that you can be mindful. Kids is a big one that's difficult, I think, right now, especially for people who are trying to manage work and kids and everything at home, and we aren't sending our kids off to as many activities. Like my family doesn't go out for big weekends anymore. There's no more mall. There's no more going out to lunch. There's no, going to big gatherings of friends and stuff like that. So sometimes I feel that the routine of entertaining a child for a long period of time can get very overwhelming. I was talking to a friend about this recently, and I was like, she needs 14 hours of activity a day, and I don't have 14 hours of ideas in me every day. She does do some playing on her own, but there's a lot of, well, here, try this now. Here, do this activity now. Here, look at this, especially if I'm trying to get any work done. And that's where it really is the difficult part. Because 15 minutes at a time is not a lot of focus time. And I do have meetings once a month on Thursdays. I have a 2-hour meeting in the mornings. That's a long time for 3-year-olds. And I can find myself getting really annoyed and really distracted. And I'm not paying attention to the meeting. And I am not giving my daughter the attention that she wants either. And so there's the situation where after 2 hours, I am incredibly frustrated. I have no idea what I said in the meeting. And my daughter is often upset because she feels that, she probably feels that I don't love her after 2 hours of being like, would you please shh? It's not good for anybody. Like, that is not a productive and effective use of those 2 hours ever. And I try to be proactive about it and have a bunch of activities ready and stuff like that, but that doesn't always go. And of course, she needs a new activity every time I'm speaking. It's not during the quiet minutes of the meeting. So that's rough, right? Last Thursday, I had one. And I don't know, it might be where we are in the season. It might be because of all of these conversations that we've been having about how to really make home comfortable. And it might be because it's sparkle season, and I just don't want anything to bring me down. But I didn't push her off this time. I set her up. I gave her activities give her a snack and her water and her wet wipe. She always says that, every time we have to have a snack, we have to have a wet wipe next to it. So I gave her those things. I had her activities. I was ready. And then when she came over and was like, Mom, 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 I pulled her onto my lap. And, on my screen, I could see that not everybody thought that was the best choice. But it was the best choice for me. And I find myself making a lot of choices for other people's comfort. And this time I didn't. There was no reason. This was a bunch of other writers, so it wasn't like there was a boss or anything that said kids on camera is not allowed. This was a bunch of my peers, a bunch of colleagues. And so I put her on my lap, and I muted the screen a lot, and I talked to her, and I would only unmute it when I had something to say. And that way she felt that she could talk at certain points, and it wasn't like she had to be quiet for 2 hours. She just had to be quiet for like, okay, it's Mommy's starting to talk. And it was so much better. Maybe I didn't absorb as much from the meeting as I would have if I had been doing it in silence, but I wouldn't have absorbed that much if I was, passing stuff to her at the same time either. And I kind of felt guilty about it afterwards. She did wave at everybody a few times, and they did wave back. Well, not all of them. Some of them waved back and encouraged her, so that didn't help. But it was really cute, and some were very accepting of her. There were some faces that were not, and I felt a little bit guilty about it afterwards. But then I got this beautiful email from one of the other writers in the group, saying, saying that I was a great mom, and that it was obvious how much I loved my daughter and how I interacted with her. And that felt really good, to not get yelled at for bringing her to an inappropriate place, but for someone to see that interaction rather than seeing me like yelling at her or telling her to be quiet or whatever. And that was better for everybody. And it was about me taking the moment and just being like, this is where I am. I am in this moment where I'm working and have my daughter. I am not going to worry about the emails I'm going to get after. I'm not going to, I don't know. I'm just going to be here in this moment with my daughter and the screen, and this is where I am. And it was a lot better. I'm still gonna, have as much ready as I can and distract her as much as I can. But when I can't, I'm just gonna sit with where I am and take it in. And I hope that helps. I hope that helps all of us have a more effective experience. And the people who had not happy faces on the screen, your not happy face versus my daughter's not happy face, guess which one I'm gonna pick. I'm just saying. But it's hard to be trying to do all of these things at the same time. And being in the moment and taking a breath and making the decision that is right in this moment is one way that we can kind of, get through it, I guess. Other ways of being present are about experiencing the moment itself. So savoring pleasures, things like that. We've talked in here a lot about the senses. I love the senses. I'm super into them right now, which doesn't seem like it should be a fad thing. I guess I should be into them all the time. But I guess I have had a recent understanding of how important it is to experience the world through all of our senses at any given moment. So just to feel things and to smell them and to taste them. I talked about being present at dinner with the people around us, but having that moment also helps us be present to the dinner. My husband has been cooking some awesome food lately, and we really enjoy it when we sit there and we take the time to talk to each other and we take the time to be present with the meal. But even with a cup of coffee, I mean, how many cups of coffee or tea or whatever your favorite beverage is, do we drink in a day, or a week or a month? And how many times do we sit there with it and we smell it and we taste it and we really enjoy that cup of coffee or tea or whatever it is? I love coffee. I drink decaf actually because I can't really handle caffeine. I will be bouncing all over the place. So I drink decaf. It has a tiny amount of caffeine, tiny. But I drink it because I love it. But it's also a routine. I drink it every day. And sometimes I don't think about it, which is kind of silly because the whole reason that I have a decaf coffee every day is because I love it. So every once in a while, I try to sit with it and really breathe it in. Every morning when I make my coffee, I smell the coffee as I'm putting it in the coffee pot. That fresh ground bean smell is just amazing. And I love it. And I was just about to ask another question, expecting comments again, but I'll ask it anyway. What are the things that you do to ground yourself to a moment? I'd love to hear them. How do you be present in a moment? Not just sense-wise, that's one way of doing it, but how do you focus on what is going on right here, right now? When we were talking about cluttering, we talked about the clutter in our minds and getting rid of some of that. And for anyone that's practiced mindfulness, like the mindfulness we think of when we think of mindful meditation, it's about noticing all the thoughts in our head, right? So you take a moment of quiet, and it's not about clearing your head. It's about noticing your thoughts and putting them to the side, right? So I may be sitting here with a lot of things going on and a lot of things on my brain, and I'm really stressing out. And so I take a minute and think, okay, what is really bothering me right now? I'm like, oh, okay, well, this thought about my daughter's school for next year keeps popping in, and I don't know what to do with it. I don't know where she's going to go. I don't know what the things are. Well, that's a stressful thought that keeps popping in that I have no control over it. So when I'm in the mindful moment, I'm going to move that thought to the side, and I'm going to deal with it later. It's not about getting rid of it or anything like that. It's about moving it to the side. And then when I come out of my moment of mindfulness, I'm going to write down a lot of that stuff. There's a lot of stuff that bounces around our brains that we worry about that we may not be able to action right away. I have no idea what I'm going to do about preschool for my daughter next year. I don't think her school is going to reopen. I haven't looked into other schools. I don't know what the school situation is going to look like. I don't know. I can't action it right now. There's not even really, I can't even really call schools in the next couple weeks because most of them are closed for the holidays. It's causing a lot of stress, bouncing around in there and taking a lot of my focus and attention when I can't do anything about it. It's future worry. So I write it down. Because sometimes I think I hold things actively in my brain because I'm afraid I'm going to forget them. And so I have a place that I can write them all down. And once it's there, I can just put it aside until the time comes. Or another thing, if I'm worried I'm going to forget something, I just put reminders and alarms in my phone. Because that way I don't have to keep in my head, like, don't forget you have to do this, don't forget you have to do this, don't forget you have to do this. There's a reminder out there for me, so I can trust in that instead of having to carry all that future worry in my brain. Because it's up there hanging out with stress. Another thing that likes to bounce around in the brain and cause lots of stress is the past. Lots of things about the past. But it's usually things that we're ruminating on. For me, this is usually things that I screwed up. I did something wrong. I said something stupid. That's a big one. I say stupid stuff all the time. I think we all do. A lot of people let it go, and it's just part of being human. I think, if it's hurtful or whatever, we should correct it. But a lot of times we correct it in the moment. Like something will come out wrong and we'll just be like, oh, that's not what I meant. I meant this, right? I do that. But then that first thing I said, and that first dumb thing stays with me for a really long time. And it just bounces around in there, taking up space, taking focus, and causing stress. So I have another place that I write that stuff down. I don't save that and look at it again. Usually I just write it down and get rid of it. But sometimes it's about acknowledging that feeling, that embarrassment, that regret. I try not to ignore it because it doesn't go away when I ignore it. I try to look it in the eye and say, all right, what are we going to do now? Because those feelings, those memories, those regrets, those worries, they need the light of day. They need to be aired out a little bit, and that helps them dissipate. They're kind of like a fog in that way, You just got to put some sunshine on it, and not saying that's a miracle cure for every regret we've ever had, but certainly pushing it to the side and ignoring it or ruminating on it doesn't help either, and it's not good for your mental well-being. So we need to let go of some of those thoughts in the past, put some of those future worries to the side until we're ready, or until the time comes when we can actually action them, and live in the right now. It's a weird time to be living in the right now. But we've been talking about all the things that can be and have been good about this year, about this time. And there are lots of them. I put something on my calendar last year because it was something I didn't want to ruminate on for a year. It was the happy memory jar. I heard of somebody doing this last year, and I didn't think my family was ready for it because I wanted it to be something my daughter could participate in. So I put it on my calendar and I forgot about it. And it just came up this week. Well, it didn't come up. It's been on my calendar for January 1st, but I didn't look that far ahead until this week. And I saw it on there and it made me smile. Now, 2020 is a year that I probably could have used a happy memory jar for. But I'm going to do it for 2021. And that is a great exercise in being present. I think to have, let me tell you what a happy memory jar is. I mean, I think it's kind of obvious from the name, but it's a jar. And every time something positive happens, you write it on a card and you put it in. And then at the end of the year, on New Year's Eve, you take out all of those cards and you remember all of the wonderful moments that happened throughout the year. We talked about this with photos earlier, going back through our photo reels and finding all of the happy pictures during the pandemic. Mine are still all over my office. I just printed them out on regular paper and just slapped them up on the wall. Nothing fancy, but they're everywhere. And it turns out that even in this year that seemed so dark, there were a lot of really happy moments. And I love being reminded about them. My daughter came in here the other day and she's like, Mom, there's a lot of me on the wall. And that is true. Most of my happy moments are with her. One, because we're pretty much never apart these days. But two, because she just makes me happy. But in those moments where we're frustrated with each other, it's good to have this constant reminder of all of these wonderful, beautiful, happy moments that we've had. So I'm hoping next year on New Year's Eve when we open our jar, like she'll be at an age to really kind of understand and appreciate all of the memories and remember them. I wasn't expecting her to remember a whole year this year, but it surprises me the things that she talks about that she hasn't seen since before coronavirus. But I think New Year's Eve will be awesome reading through all of that, right? And kind of getting the perspective on the year, because I imagine this one is going to be a little bit rocky too. Hopefully not quite the same, but we're not done yet. But the other thing is that it forces you to stop on a day that's not maybe the best day, but when you had a positive moment, and it forces you to stop and focus on that moment, to acknowledge this positive thing that happened, and to, give it the attention of writing it down. Like, that's so cool. It's a whole year of doing that. And hopefully every year. And then it creates a little bit of a time capsule of all of the happy moments in your life. I hope to share these with my daughter when she's older. Just the things that made us happy, when she was little. I think it's going to be a really, really fun experiment. And I think it's going to turn into an ongoing activity that we can do to focus us in the present. And I think that'll be really cool. I want to see if I can find, I actually didn't think about sharing this earlier, but I'm pretty sure I took a picture of a bunch of things that someone had suggested go in a memory jar. Yeah, I did. Okay, so these are some of the things, if you need a way to kind of focus your thought on what should go in there, because, writing down happy moments is pretty broad. Like, nobody fought at breakfast this morning. Should I put that as a happy moment? Maybe. It depends on what's going on with you guys in your life. But here are some ways to kind of focus the thought on this. And whether or not you choose to do a happy memory jar, I think it's good to hold these things in your head and just kind of let them trigger, like, oh yeah, this is a happy moment, something that I could remember. And I'll just, I don't know, help you be present in that moment. So this is moments that made you proud, favorite meals, compliments you receive. That is an excellent one. Be present when someone gives you a compliment. It's really easy to brush those aside, but don't. Those are important, and they're real, and they're meaningful, and you deserve them. Things you're currently curious about. I like that one a lot. I think that's especially great with kids because that changes all the time. And it could really record where their brain was at a special moment. But it's cool for adults too. Like, what are you into right now? What is sparking your curiosity? I think that's really cool to record that. The things large and small you're grateful for. Yeah. Being grateful is really impactful when we think about all the things in our life that make us happy, and that we're grateful that they are in our lives. This can be people, this can be things, this can be experiences. But one thing with that is I find that it's very easy to say, I'm grateful for my health, therefore I shouldn't worry about the fact that I sprained my ankle. Like, overall, I'm really healthy, so I shouldn't, complain about my ankle. That was just an example. I don't know, but it's true. That's happened a lot with coronavirus, talking about, I'm grateful that we have a home where my family can be safe. That does not mean that this hasn't been a struggle. So, being grateful is extremely important, but if you're someone like me and that can use gratefulness in order to try to convince yourself that your non-grateful feelings aren't as valid, just be mindful of that as well, and make sure you're being kind to yourself as well. The Netflix show you're most obsessed with. I would like to know this. What Netflix shows are you obsessed with? Leave a comment. I'm curious. I don't actually watch a lot of TV, so when I go to sit down and watch something, I never have any idea what to watch. So leave some ideas. Your child's favorite joke, food, toy, or person of the moment. You want to hear my daughter's favorite joke? I know you want to hear my daughter's favorite joke. Why did the pirate chicken cross the road? Because it wanted pizza! Not kidding. Every joke, the answer to it is because it wanted pizza. But we have lots of crossing road jokes. Pirate chicken is our favorite, though. Something nice you did for yourself. Now, this means you have to do something nice for yourself. So make sure you do that, right? And something nice someone else did for you. That goes in with being grateful as well, too. But I love the idea of other people doing nice things for you and taking a minute to record that and to put some emphasis on it. I think that, I don't know, it makes me happy. It makes me happy thinking about these things. And again, I don't want to go too far into looking on the bright side of things as if there isn't a dark side. There is a dark side. There are really tough days and tough moments. The positivity and the mindfulness and the being present, I focus on being present on the good stuff because that's the stuff I want to remember and think about. But I promise you, I'm very present in the things that are not so great too, so that I, can burn away that fog, like we were saying earlier. So I just want to kind of share the whole picture with you there as well. There's lots more about being mindful that we could talk about, and maybe we will on a different day. But I'm conscious that I'm running out of time here. So I could go on and on about this topic because living in the moment and being present is so doable, and it's something that can really have a profound impact on how you feel about the moment, about yourself, about the day, about the year. And so I fully encourage you to give it a try, and then to share with me all of the different ways that you have found to be present and all of the things you've been present for. Tell me about it. So quickly, I'm going to give you a challenge. Your challenge, should you choose to accept it, is to find a moment that you can be present for. Put the phone away. Turn off all the distractions that you can. No TV going in the background. Don't say it's just the background. Turn it off. If it's just, if you're not paying attention to it, there's no reason to have it on, right? Turn off as many distractions as you can and enjoy the moment. Maybe it's opening presents. Maybe it's dinner. Maybe it's a family activity or a family game. Find something that you can do and be present for, and just fully absorb that moment, and then tell me about it. I want to hear about it. So have a happy holiday. I will have another video on Saturday, and then I will see you guys on New Year's Eve. Take care. See you next time.